shocking taboos that only exist in Brazil. Are you ready to learn about each of them? Well, I'm sure you'll be very surprised. So join us and let's go. Number 19. The paradox of female beauty. Brazil is known worldwide for the beauty of its women, but this fame has a dark side. The pressure to conform to unrealistic beauty standards is intense, leading the country to be one of the world leaders in plastic surgery. Procedures such as liposuction, breast implants, and even the controversial intimate surgery are common, even among young women. The cult of the perfect body creates an atmosphere where natural imperfections are seen as something to be corrected. Paradoxically, while body exposure is celebrated at events such as Carnival, women who don't fit the dominant beauty standard often face discrimination. Body positivity movements and acceptance of body diversity are gaining ground, but the journey to deconstruct centuries of cultural conditioning is a long one. Number 18. The taboo of natural childbirth. Brazil faces a paradoxical situation when it comes to childbirth. While the country has one of the highest rates of cesarean sections in the world, there is a growing movement that considers natural childbirth taboo in certain social circles. In some regions and social classes in Brazil, especially among the more affluent, cesarean delivery is seen as a modern and safe option. Many women schedule elective C-sections, sometimes weeks before their due date, as if it were a routine procedure. This preference for C-sections is in stark contrast to the recommendations of the World Health Organization and has led to a C-section epidemic in the country. In some private hospitals, cesarean section rates reach a staggering 80 to 90% of births. The taboo around natural childbirth is fueled by several factors: fear of pain, concerns about changes in the body, convenience for doctors and patients, and even social status, since cesareans are often associated with better quality medical care. I have a question for you. First, I'd like to tell you that it's possible to keep up with the biggest curiosities of our world every day. But for that, you need to be subscribed to our channel. So, have you subscribed yet? If not, take the opportunity to subscribe now. Now that you've done that, let's go. Number 17. Flaunting wealth, a real danger. In a country marked by deep social inequalities, flaunting signs of wealth can be more than just in bad taste. It can be dangerous. Brazil, unfortunately, has high crime rates, and flaunting valuable possessions in public can attract unwanted attention. Expensive jewelry, luxury watches, and state-of-the-art electronic devices are items that are best kept discreet. In some areas, especially big cities, even using your cell phone on the street can be risky. In other words, when in Brazil, no cell phones, no shiny necklaces, and no luxury watches. At least not on the streets. Number 16. The okay gesture is offensive. Even if it's apparently harmless, it can cause major misunderstandings. In Brazil, that gesture we use to say that everything is fine can get you into serious trouble. Forming a circle with your thumb and forefinger is considered extremely obscene, equivalent to a serious insult. The origin of this interpretation goes back to ancient cultural traditions in the country. While in many parts of the world, this gesture signifies approval, in Brazil, it is associated with intimate parts of the human body. Unsuspecting tourists have found themselves in embarrassing situations by inadvertently using this sign. To avoid problems, opt for a thumbs-up sign. This alternative is widely accepted and doesn't risk offending anyone. Number 15. Reject food. Brazilian cuisine is rich and diverse, reflecting the country's many cultural influences. However, not all dishes appeal to all palates. But beware, showing displeasure with food is considered a major offense in Brazil. Hospitality is a fundamental value in Brazilian culture. When someone offers food, they are sharing more than just food. They are sharing their culture and tradition. Rejecting or frowning at an offered dish is seen as a rejection of the person who offered it. This taboo extends beyond the dinner table. In restaurants, it is considered bad taste to complain openly about the food. If something really isn't to your taste, it's best to leave it discreetly on the plate. Number 14. Eating in the street. While in many countries it's common to see people eating while walking, in Brazil it's considered bad manners. Surprisingly, even eating ice cream in the street can be frowned upon, especially for adults, although there are still people who do it in this country. This social norm has its roots in the Brazilian appreciation of meals as moments of pause and conviviality. Eating hastily in the street is seen as a devaluation of this important ritual. Even foods typically associated with fast consumption, such as sandwiches or slices of pizza, are preferably eaten sitting down. In street eateries, it's common to see people standing around high tables, but rarely walking and eating at the same time. For Brazilians, the act of eating goes beyond the mere ingestion of calories. Number 13. The Island of Snake. Imagine an island paradise off the coast of Brazil. Now add to that image thousands of deadly snakes. Welcome to Ilha da Queimada Grande, also known as Snake Island. This giant piece of land is home to one of the largest concentrations of poisonous snakes in the world. The Brazilian government has strictly forbidden visits to this place. The reason? A frightening average of 5 deadly snakes per square meter. The star of this horror show is the Jararaca ilhoa, an endemic species whose venom can kill in a matter of hours. Local legends tell that pirates introduced the snakes to protect buried treasure. The reality, however, is even more interesting. The snakes became isolated on the island thousands of years ago, when the sea level rose and separated the place from the mainland. The last known human inhabitant of the island was a lighthouse keeper, who mysteriously disappeared in the 1920s. Today, only scientists and members of the Brazilian Navy are allowed to visit this deadly sanctuary of nature. Number 12. Noiva do Cordeiro. In the interior of Minas Gerais, there is a community that defies conventional norms. Noiva do Cordeiro, a small town of around 600 inhabitants, is known as the town of women. Here, women take on all the traditionally male roles, from farming to construction. The history of this community began decades ago, when the men left the town in search of work in the big cities. The resilient women took over and built a prosperous and self-sufficient society. Although some men still live in the city, their numbers are insignificant, and they don't play crucial roles in community management. This unusual dynamic has attracted worldwide attention, with many single men expressing an interest in moving there. However, the women of Bride of the Lamb are not desperate for husbands. They have set strict standards for potential mates. Suitors must be willing to share household chores equally. Dishwashing, laundry, cooking and cleaning are essential skills. Number 11. Punctuality? Not here. If you're the type who keeps an eye on the clock, prepare yourself for a culture shock in Brazil. The notion of punctuality here is quite different from what many foreigners are used to. In fact, arriving on time can be considered rude in certain social situations. A popular saying sums up this attitude well: "He who is in a hurry eats raw." This philosophy deeply permeates Brazilian culture, especially in social contexts. Arriving late to a party or casual encounter is not only tolerated, but often expected. BBC journalist Lucy Bryson had a revealing experience when she arrived on time at a party in Rio de Janeiro. To her surprise, she found the host still in his bathrobe, finishing his preparations. This scenario is more the rule than the exception in Brazil. Several factors contribute to this culture of lateness. The chaotic traffic of big cities, the tendency to stop and chat with acquaintances on the street, and a general more relaxed attitude towards time shape this behavior. In professional contexts and business meetings, punctuality is still valued. Brazilian lateness is more accepted at social events, where arriving 30 minutes after the scheduled time is practically the norm. Number 10. Beer. In Brazil, beer is more than just a drink. It's a social ritual. The idea of drinking alone, especially in public, is viewed with strangeness and even pity. For Brazilians, the pleasure of beer is intrinsically linked to company and conversation. This culture of sharing manifests itself in curious ways. It's common to see groups of friends sharing a single large bottle of beer, serving small quantities in smaller glasses. This not only keeps the drink cold for longer, but also creates a ritual of serving and being served, reinforcing social bonds. The practice of offering beer even to strangers is not uncommon. In bars and on beaches, it's perfectly normal to see people inviting strangers to join them and share a beer. Number 9. The rock sign can be a serious offense. Rock fans, beware. That iconic gesture with the index and little fingers raised, so associated with the world of rock and roll, has a completely different meaning in Brazil. Far from symbolizing a rebellious attitude or musical appreciation, this sign is interpreted as a serious offense. In the Brazilian context, this gesture implies that the spouse of the person to whom you direct it is being unfaithful. It is a serious and potentially dangerous accusation, capable of provoking violent reactions. The origin of this interpretation can be traced back to ancient Mediterranean and Latin traditions, where the gesture symbolized horns associated with infidelity. In Brazil, this symbolism has remained alive and has a negative meaning. Number 8. Natural beaches. While the Brazilian authorities are strict with acts considered harassing or obscene in public, they take a surprisingly liberal approach when it comes to natural beaches. Brazil is home to 8 official naturist beaches spread across 5 states, Paraíba, Bahia, Espírito Santo, Rio de Janeiro, and Santa Catarina. The most famous of these is Tambaba Beach in Paraíba, considered the pioneer of naturism in Brazil since 1991. With its breathtaking scenery, Tambaba attracts both Brazilians and foreign tourists looking for an experience of total freedom by the sea. These beaches operate under strict rules of respect and privacy. Photographing or filming without consent is strictly forbidden, and mutual respect is the #1 rule. The idea is to create an environment where people can feel comfortable in their own skin, free from judgment or unwanted stares. Number 7. Poroka. This giant wave, which occurs at the mouth of the Amazon River, is a spectacle as impressive as it is dangerous. Poroka is a rare tidal phenomenon that occurs when the waters of the Atlantic Ocean meet those of the Amazon River. The result is a wave that can reach up to 4 meters high and extend for kilometers into the river. The name Poroka comes from the Tupi-Guarani language and means Big Bang, a reference to the deafening sound that precedes the arrival of the wave. This phenomenon occurs only twice a year, between February and March, during the equinox tides. The wave can last up to 30 minutes, sweeping away everything in its path, trees, boats, and even parts of the riverbank. Number 6. A passion for dance. When you think of Brazil, it's almost impossible not to associate the country with music and dance. Far from being just a stereotype, this passion for bodily and musical expression is deeply rooted in Brazilian culture. Samba, perhaps Brazil's most emblematic rhythm, is much more than a dance. It's a cultural expression that tells the story of the country. Born in Afro-Brazilian communities, samba has evolved to become a national symbol, especially during Carnival. But Brazil is not just about samba. Forró, originally from the Northeast, is a sensual and energetic ballroom dance. Frevo, typical of Pernambuco, is known for its acrobatic movements. And capoeira, a unique blend of dance and martial art, has its roots in the resistance of African slaves. For Brazilians, dancing is not just a leisure activity, but a form of expression, celebration, and even cultural resistance. It's common to see people of all ages dancing at parties, in the street, or even at home. Number 5. The Fiato Culture. A practice that often surprises foreign visitors is the Fiato culture in Brazil, especially in smaller towns and rural areas. Fiato refers to the act of buying something without paying for it immediately, based solely on trust between the seller and the customer. In many establishments, especially small neighborhood shops, it is common to see signs with phrases like "Fiato only tomorrow," or notebooks where customers' debts are written down. This practice, which would be unthinkable in many developed countries, is based on strong community ties and mutual trust. The Fiato system serves as an informal safety net for many low-income Brazilians, allowing them to acquire essential goods in times of financial difficulty. However, it can also lead to conflicts when debts are not paid. For foreigners, the idea of making purchases without a formal credit system or guarantees can seem risky or even irresponsible. Number 4. The Vasectomy Taboo. In Brazil, there is a significant taboo surrounding male vasectomy, which contrasts sharply with the acceptance of female contraceptive methods. Many Brazilian men associate vasectomy with a loss of virility or masculinity. There is a persistent, albeit unfounded belief that the procedure can affect intimate performance or even transform a man. In contrast, female contraceptive methods, including more invasive procedures such as tubal ligation, are widely accepted and even expected. This places a disproportionate burden of contraceptive responsibility on women. Number 3. Skin color. One aspect of Brazilian bureaucracy that often shocks foreigners is the practice of including skin color on official documents and government forms. This practice, which would be considered discriminatory in many countries, is seen in Brazil as a tool to combat racism and promote affirmative action policies. The Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics classifies the population into 5 color race categories: white, black, brown, yellow, and indigenous. However, self-declaration is complex in a highly mixed-race country like Brazil. Many Brazilians feel uncomfortable having to classify themselves in one of these categories, arguing that they do not adequately capture the country's racial diversity. In addition, the perception of color can vary significantly depending on the social and regional context. Number 2. The controversial Brazilian jeitinho. The Brazilian jeitinho is an expression that refers to a peculiar way of solving problems or difficult situations, often by circumventing established rules or norms. While some see it as a trait of creativity and adaptability, others consider it a form of everyday corruption. This behavior can manifest itself in various ways, from using personal connections to speed up bureaucratic processes, to small traffic infractions justified as necessary. The jeitinho is often seen as a response to the country's excessive bureaucracy and social inequalities. For many Brazilians, jeitinho is a survival skill in an often unfair and inefficient system. However, critics argue that this practice perpetuates inequality and weakens social institutions. Foreigners are often shocked by the casualness with which some rules are ignored or circumvented. Number 1. The stigma of single motherhood. Being a single mother in Brazil still carries a strong social stigma. Despite being a reality for millions of Brazilians, women who raise their children alone often face judgment and prejudice. In more conservative environments, solo mothers are often seen as failures in the family sphere or as women of dubious morals. Paternal abandonment is a significant problem in the country, with thousands of children not having their father's name on their birth certificate. However, responsibility and social judgment fall disproportionately on mothers. Support initiatives and mutual aid groups for solo mothers are springing up all over the country, offering emotional and practical support. Slowly, the narrative is changing, with more voices celebrating the strength and resilience of these women. However, the road to full social acceptance is still long. Which of these taboos in Brazil shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Also, I want to know if you're interested in finding out which country you'd like to know about its taboos. You can tell us in the comments too. Well, that's it, and until next time, curious.